Welcome to Entrepreneurial Insights, a podcast brought to you by the Society of Entrepreneurs and hosted by Pearson Crutcher and Jay Healy. The Society of Entrepreneurs is a membership organization founded to promote entrepreneurship and provide education and resources to Memphis business owners.
In this podcast, we'll have a series of interviews with accomplished business owners and entrepreneurs in Memphis, Tennessee. There are so many great entrepreneurs in Memphis, and their stories need to be told.
Welcome to Entrepreneurial Insights. I'm so excited about this. Johnny was inducted into the Society of Entrepreneurs last year with his partner, Matt Lipscomb. They have a really interesting story. Their fathers started Lipscomb and Pitts in what year?
54.
54.
1954.
Yeah. And then they came and purchased the company several years later from their parents. When we induct people into the Society of Entrepreneurs, we look at three main features. One is that they have risk, vision, and strategic growth. So that there are several members that are second, third generation members that took a company that was rather small and then grew it into what the company is today. Today, they are the 15th or the 12th biggest? 15th biggest insurance company in the country. So they have really built an amazing company. I loved when I was thinking about what I was going to say, and your picture in the wall where it shows what it started as and then what it grew to. And I said, well, there's the strategic growth right there in that picture. So we really appreciate it. I'm very excited about today. Johnny is the CEO partner, Higginbotham Insurance now. Lipscomb and Pitts is what we all think of. But Johnny, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to hearing your story. Welcome, Johnny. Thank you.
Well, just real quick, this photograph over here, or painting, I guess, if you take a look at it, it's very symbolic because it has our new building in it, and it has I found a black and white photograph of Matt Lipscomb and John Pitts in 1956 with their DeSoto remember the black DeSoto cars pulled up in front of our old building in 651 South Cooper to get out. I found that photograph, and I had the artist paint it on top of the new building, so the old and the new. So it's one of my favorite things that we've done here from that standpoint. So yeah, I've been in the business a long time. I figured that I was going to go into this business. My father was in it. He was the first one in his family to go to college and didn't have any money. And he said, well, the insurance business is one of those things you can sell yourself. You don't have to have any capital. You couldn't borrow any money. So he just kind of started selling it and grew the company extensively. Then when we came on board, we made the decision, Matt and I both, the two sons, to come in and grow it from there. So we've been very, very blessed. And I didn't know, you talk about being an entrepreneur. I didn't know if I was an entrepreneur or not. And I'll never forget the summer of 1977, a buddy of mine called me. And he said, what are you doing this summer? How are you going to make money? Back then it was mowing lawns and things like that. And I said, well, mowing lawns, I guess, and back then it was like, if you had a big lawn, you're making $5. It's not a lot, it wasn't a lot back then. Plus my dad paid for the gas. So fortunately I was clearing $5. But you can't make a lot of money doing that. He goes, I've got an idea. What do you think? And he ran it past me. So here's what it was. So he said, after we go to the bars at night on Friday night, and we'll leave, drive to Sims, Alabama, and we're gonna rent a U-Haul and go in and buy hanging basket ferns, and then we're gonna load them in the U-Haul and go to various city and sell them to people in office buildings. And I said, well, how are we gonna get the money? All the questions come out. He goes, I don't know, we'll figure it out. So I met with my dad and I said, Dad, I need to borrow $1,500 in cash. And he goes, what's this for? And I started telling him. He loved it. He goes, man, this is better than any part-time job you'll ever do in flipping hamburgers at Wendy's or cutting grass. So I borrowed the money. I said, I'll pay you back Friday. So we left Saturday, right after Silky's. I can't believe we drove at night. Anyway, we went down there, 6 o'clock in the morning, rented a U-Haul, found this greenhouse, and went to this lady named Freddie. I'll never forget Freddie. Freddie was there, and she had this greenhouse full of these beautiful hanging basket ferns. Freddie, we want to buy 200 ferns from you. And she goes, well, where's your tax ID number? And I pulled out money, and I said, I don't have a tax ID number, but I'll pay cash right here. And we'll pick the ferns. So we went out there and you pick ferns, your own ferns, you get to pick the best ones. So we did all the work, sleeve them in these, they look like a giant garbage sack. You put them in there, stuff them in, 200 into a U-Haul, and we took off. We went to Birmingham, Alabama, checked into a Motel 6, put all our stuff in there, and we said, okay, and I bought some white jumpsuits to make us look official, because here was our line. We'd go into a building and say, man, we've been to the secretary at that time. It was just called a secretary, and she was the gatekeeper. And we'd go, ma'am, we've been decorating office buildings downtown, and we've got all these ferns left over. And we'd pull one out, and it'd go, whoosh, and it's just beautiful. And we just got to get rid of them before we head back to the next stop. Would you like to buy some? And she goes, gosh, those are beautiful. How much are they? We said, well, here's what we're going to do. We got to go to over here. We'll sell you yours for $10 if you can sell 10 more for 15. She goes, oh, yeah. So we loaded up, messed around, did the same thing over and over again. And well, 3 days later, we sold 200 ferns. We made $8 times 200. We made $1,600 clear. Came back, and I called my dad before we left, and he had all his buddies over for drinks on Friday night that wanted to hear the story. So we came in there, paid my dad back, told the story, they were questioning it. And at that time, I knew, I think I'm an entrepreneur. So we did that for the next 2-3 years. And I realized that time I like kind of having my own destiny in charge of what I want to do and how I want to do it. So it's been a lot of fun since then. And my best friend, Blair Gilbert, is the guy that we're still best. We're going hunting tomorrow. So anyway, we've stuck together all these years. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is not necessarily the history of how you become an entrepreneur and everything, but it's kind of somewhat of a boring topic. What's success? You've heard it many times. Don Hudson's given many a speech about success. What are the ingredients of success? You know, and I thought about it. I read something several weeks ago, and it said, you know, if you're talented in something and you kind of wing it, you can probably be in the top 20%. But if you work on it, you could be in the top 2%. So I started thinking, you know, that's kind of the way it goes a lot of times. You put effort into something, then you might be better than what you really thought. So I started thinking, you know, okay, what is success? Well, it's measured in a lot of different ways. I mean, we all think of success. A lot of people think it's financial. Well, some people think it's relationships. Maybe it's ambition, happiness, joy, faith, you know, whatever it is, giving back. It really kind of, I think when you're looking at success, what defines your success? So mine's measured in a lot of different ways, many of which I just mentioned. So anyway, I think as a young man, I made it a point to ask people who have been there before, have made mistakes, because I don't want to suffer like they did. What were some of the things, what were some of the things you did that you would not want to do again? And so I'll never forget, Jeremy's not here, but Jeremy Park and I had dinner with Fred Smith and U.S. Attorney General John Ashcroft for President Bush. We had dinner with him right here in Memphis. And I'll never forget, we asked the general, said, if you could tell me, a young guy something, what would it be? And he immediately goes, he said, I want to make sure I get it. It's what you know that just ain't so. And I really sunk into that, and I go, well, okay, how many times have I gone through life thinking, I am so sure that this is it? You know, Kim and I'll be in the car, and she goes, I think it's over there. We turn here, and I go, no, it's over here. I mean, I'm wrong. You know, I was just sure that it was a right turn, and it's not. So I think it's that kind of thing, looking for advice, asking lots of questions, and then realizing that it's not, if you do make a mistake, it's not a loss, it's a lesson. And it's hard to look at that, but I've always tried to look at something when I've made if somebody tells you don't do something, you're probably going to lackadaisical not do it. But if you do it and you get burned, it'll never happen again, right? We're all like that. It's a loss, not a lesson. So I think, when you go down the life trails and everything, sometimes you can just move on and do like my dad used to say. He goes, water seeks its course down a hill. It just kind of finds its way. And it's always going to do that. And it's not going to change. Just like life, just like your life, it's not going to change unless you do something about it, unless you put up a dam or you put your hand over here, you make a decision to do something else. So I think it's all about intention, living life with intention, not just letting it happen. So one of the things I like to think about is, it's a big deal, but what is your destiny? What is your purpose? And so, you wing it, you could probably be in the top 20%. but if you work on it, you could be in the top 2%. How many of you have seen the movie Forrest Gump? Everybody, right? Remember the famous line when Forrest says, "Mama, what's my destiny?" And she said, "Forrest, you got to find that out for yourself, son. Life's like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get." And we all remember that line. It's a famous line. However, I don't think it's like a box of chocolates. I mean, you could, if you didn't live with intention, yeah, you might get the nougat, you might get something else with nuts in it. But if you live with intention, it's not going to be like that. I call it floating through life without intention. If you just go in and I like to visualize what I want to do. And Allison will tell you, Allison and I have been working together for over 10 years, and I'm very intentional. I plan things, and I like to think them through, visualize them and things like that, and put effort into them. So something I saw this the other day on Instagram, so it's not mine. It said this guy was working out, and I'm kind of an athlete, I guess I could say, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. But if you want to shine in front of everybody, you have to work in front of nobody. I've never heard that before. It was Tony Robbins. In fact, is where it was. I heard it on Instagram. So if you want to shine in front of everybody, you have to work in front of nobody. And it's always interesting to me how people that really put in a good effort, it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody knows about, and they become successful. So don't you hear this? You hear these speeches where somebody says, a young person will ask an older person, what's the secret here? And they go, follow your passion. Well, okay, that's a generic response. I don't necessarily like it because I'll tell you, we all know about passions. I mean, if you kind of work on it, if you wing it, you're probably in the top 20%, but if you work on it, you could be in the top 2%. And passions change over time. As a young person, you have a passion to do something that's different when you're 65 like me. So let me give you an example. I talked to him this morning, my son, he's 35 years old. He graduated from college in High Point University in North Carolina, 22 years old. We did a father-son trip. I always took a father-child trip with them every summer to a national park or somewhere. Ours went to the Tetons. We climbed. We did a lot of things. He fell in love with Jackson Hole. He said, I think I want to live here. I go, okay, great. So goes back, packs his stuff up, literally drives back out to Jackson Hole. Been there since. So when he was 25, which was 10 years ago or so, he went out there and we were hanging around, and he goes, Dad, man, I think my passion's bartending. I really like it. Really? Why do you like it so much? Well, he goes, it's fun. I'm the center of attention. Plenty of young ladies around, and I make good money. It's great. And I go, okay, that's okay. You're passionate about that. I get it. But is this something maybe you want to turn into maybe owning the bar one day, or maybe owning a restaurant? He goes, I don't know, I don't know what the situation is. So I'll never forget. We came back a year or so later, and he said, and he reminded me this morning that he goes, yeah, I remember saying that. He said to me, he goes, Dad, if I'm 26 years old, and I'm still bartending, I want you to fly out to Jackson, unannounced, walk into the bar, tap me on the shoulder, and say, let's go. And so it's really a moving moment. And so when that literally happened, it's like it happened yesterday. So the next day, we're getting ready to leave, and he goes, I thought about this. I couldn't sleep about it. I've got to do something different. And he goes, would you think about this, and let's talk next week? So we did. He calls me a week later and he goes, I want to go in the real estate business. I want to go back to school. I want to get a secondary degree. I've researched it. It's Cornell. I want to go to Cornell. I want to get a real estate hospitality degree. And so I said, I've always made it a point to tell my kids, I always pay for the shuns, the vacations and education. This is education. So I said, I'm on it. We'll do it. He goes back, gets his degree, comes back, and I said, what do you want to do now? He goes, you and me are going to be in business together, Pitts West Investments. Roll the clock ahead. We've got 8 to 10 properties. We got 2 hotels. We have several real estate buildings and developing and building, and it's him. He's the brains. I'm the bank. That's the way I like to put it. But it's really enjoyable and fun. I talk to him every day. It's deepened our relationship. But he told me this morning he said, no kidding, this was at 10 o'clock this morning. He said, is it just normal when you can't go to sleep because you got a great idea you're thinking about? I go, yeah, it's very normal. You know, when I have something, my mind starts churning, right? Don't y'all have that? You can't get it out of your mind no matter what. You write it down, your mind's churning, you're thinking. I think that's the entrepreneurial spirit God gives us all that we think about. So, you know, I talk about being a gifted, are you in a gifted area or not? I'm a triathlete. I don't know if you know what that is. That's a swim, bike, run. And when I wing it, like I've got a race, say, coming up in March of this year. If I don't really heavily train, I'll probably do pretty well, maybe even podium. But if I work on it and really put the effort into it, I'll not only win my age group, win the age group younger than me, and be nationally ranked. I was several years ago when I put my effort to it. So it's another way, you don't just do it. You go out and put your effort into it. And so another thing about, I think, success that I like to look at is decisiveness and dependability. You know, we all have people in our lives who they say they're going to do something. Hey, I'm going to call you about that, you know, and then you never hear from them. And I used to be, I'm very intentional. I'm going, okay, well, when are you going to call me? Well, let's exchange numbers. And then they don't call you and everything. I've learned over time, that's somewhat of a colloquialism that they're talking about, not necessarily want to meet with you. I'm a little naive from that standpoint, but anyway, I think it's important to be intentional about those kind of things. It only takes a couple of broken promises, and all of a sudden in your company, if you're not dependable, you don't do what what your boss or somebody that you're reporting to says, or a friend, they're going to call you more. All of a sudden you become the worst thing in the world, irrelevant. It's worse. If you're irrelevant, that is a bad place to be. Nobody really needs you, and you're not important. And I just don't ever want to be into that point in my life. So as far as the decisiveness, Allison knows this, and Amanda and Jeremy, I live by the 3 Ds. You do it, you delegate it, or you delete it. Don, we've talked about this before. It's something you either decide on it, get rid of it, you're not going to do it, or you just delete it altogether. And to add to the D's here, I don't dwell on it. I keep on it and make those decisions. So, and then I tell somebody. Have you ever noticed that when you're going to do something, if you tell somebody and they see you again a week later, I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna do this triathlon for Memphis in May, and I tell a couple guys. In the week after the Memphis in May, they'll go, "How'd you do?" And if I go, "What are you talking about?" Then they go, "You're full of BS, Johnny. Were you not?" Or if they're going to say, "Let me tell you, I did. Got a second? I won my age group, man. I set a PR, blah, blah, blah." So I think it's important to, if you have a goal in your life that's really important to you, be accountable to yourself and to someone else by telling them specifically what you're doing. And if it's a good friend, ask them to hold you accountable. I think that's really, really important. So how many of us worry? Okay, we all worry. We all, and it's human nature to take it to the entire. I was talking to Shadar a minute ago. I think I said, your doctor calls you and you go, "Oh my gosh, what is it? I need to see you." Your mind goes, "Cancer. Let's get the wheels out. It's over with." We kind of tend to think that. And he says, "No, I want to see about your report. It's great. You're healthy as a horse. See in a year or something." It's usually the case. So worry can be something that is, it's little. So I remember reading a book one time and it said, "Do you know how most trees in the forest die?" And some people, forest fires, lightning and stuff. You go, no, far and away. It's the little things. It's decay. It's the slow insect biting it year after year after year till it finally just falls over. So worry is kind of like that. I look at worry as something like it's not, if you let it get to you daily like that, it's going to decay you. It's going to knock you over and it's going to eat your time up. It's going to take all your effort, your health and everything. So I started years ago. And by the way, it's interesting. We live in this, I call it the fictitious future. We all kind of think that we're going to go down this way, and it's usually negative because you just kind of want to be prepared for the negative. But it's usually that. It's usually a fictitious future. Statistically, 70% of the things we all worry about never happen. Don't even happen. So I go in there and I try to categorize. It's hard to do, because you always want to go to that, oh gosh, it's going to be terrible. So I classify my worries. In my mind, I sometimes do write them down, but I'll go, 1 to 3. Okay, big deal. That's not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about, that particular thing. Am I going to run out of gas? I'm not going to worry about that. Let's move on to something else. 8, 9, or 10, probably going to happen. Accept it, move on. It's that middle ground where the problem is. That's where the 4, 5, 6, and 7s. So let me give you, so the other day, I've got my buddies coming in for a big duck hunt in my cabin tomorrow, 7 of us. And we always look forward to it. It's a lot of fun. And so I had for the freeze, you can imagine this is out in the middle of nowhere. I went over there, I started worrying about it. And I said, golly, I wonder if my pipes are frozen. I wonder if there's a leak. What if I get over there and the water everywhere and I got to tear my cabin down? That's where my mind went. My wife goes, why don't you just get in your car and drive over there and see what's going on? And I said, okay. So I get over there. Well, it wasn't good. The pipes were frozen. I couldn't turn on any water. So I turned the water off to the main. We got a well that comes up. And I called a plumber. Plumber came over. It took him 2 trips, a lot of money, but he fixed it. He said, man, he goes, you got in there before all the rest of the people's pipes. They found out they were burst, but you're one of the lucky ones, and we got it fixed. And I started thinking, had I not done that, had I not taken action, I'd be sitting there stuck in neutral, worrying about the dadgum pipes, and my buddies would be mad because we're not going on our hunting trip. But it all turned out great. Anyway, so I don't really have a conclusion here necessarily, other than I think that it's a life of success. It's a summary of a lot of things. It's taking things that come at you, getting rid of the things that you don't want to do or you don't want to worry about, things like that. All the summaries of all these things. So I thought I would end like this. I always like really good questions. We have interview questions that we use. For example, here at Lipscomb, one of them, if you're ever going to interview it, you'll know this one, is if you could go back in history geographically with no time limit, what 3 people would you want to meet and why? And it's interesting what the responses you get. So think about that. But that's not the 3 questions I'm going to ask you here. So I don't know if we want to just talk about this now, or if you want to just let me ask you the questions, you ponder them, and then you guys we can open up for questions if you'd like. But here's my 3 questions. If you could receive a letter from your future self, what advice would it give? So think about it. If you got a letter, the good thing about this, it puts it into a visual that you can actually think about for yourself. So if you could receive a letter from your future self, what would it be? And then if you had this is a good one. If you had one day to change in your life, what would you change? I've got a million of those. Think about that. If you could go back and change one thing. And then here's an interesting one. This is my final one. If you're in a room with everyone you've ever met, who'd be the one you'd go looking for? Interesting. All the people you've met, who would you want to go look for? So anyway, thank you all for today, for coming in the rain and the weather and everything. Pearson, what do you want to?
I want to see if anybody has any questions for you before we turn it to Johnny. Does anybody have any questions for Johnny? I do have one question that I always want to ask everybody. And it's interesting that you're talking about that entrepreneurial feeling of thinking about something and just to keep it on going until you actually implement it. But one of the questions we always ask is, do you think that you can teach somebody to be an entrepreneur, or are they born or taught?
I'm in the born category. I just tell you, I think it's like great salespeople. I think you've got that fire in the belly that's natural. Now, you can do certain things to improve your relative position. I think from an entrepreneur, you can perhaps improve I'm looking at it from a super duper entrepreneur position. The people that really start things that you're going, my gosh, that is unbelievable. I think they're born. And now, it may be that they're discovered. So I didn't really think I was an entrepreneur until I started selling. I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur when I was selling these firms. But afterwards, it kind of dawned on me that this is good. I like to do my own thing. So I think it's a dual answer to the question, born perhaps, but also I think discovered perhaps in later life when events come up that all of a sudden it opens your eyes up to the fact that, I think I'm an entrepreneur. And there's levels of entrepreneurism. I mean, there's, Pitt Hydes who start out as levels. And then there's Johnny Pitts who starts a fern selling company in college. I mean, those are vastly different, but they got the same type of drive in them.
That fern person could end up being Pitt Hyde with them. That's true.
Yeah.
Don?
Good talk, Johnny.
Thank you.
I liked your remarks on worry. And it made me think of a line I heard years ago from Mary Kay Ash. Remember the Mary Kay company?
Yeah.
She was a brilliant woman, but she said worry is nothing more than negative goal setting. I always remembered that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it is about. I mean, I think some people, I know a lot of people that just simply don't worry. I mean, we have I think a lot of elderly women in particular are really good. I think they're super on their prayers. I think it's a God thing. I mean, I really do. And I wish I was more like that. But it's a blessing to not have to do that. Yes, sir.
I know you're aware of the need to keep and retain good people. A lot of change is going on with technology where people are not necessarily hiring a lot of people. Some companies need them. They couldn't function without human beings doing something. No question about retaining. What are some of the elements of retaining competent, faithful, and loyal people who have opportunities to move and do something else?
Well, I tell you, that is the biggest issue in business today. And we talk about it all the time. And I spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. So let me tell you what we do. First of all, you go from an environment where everybody's in the office. You're seeing everybody, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, really? And there's a connection. Then all of a sudden, everybody's in, I got employees in 20 states right now, 21, as of yesterday, 21 states now. It doesn't matter where they are, but they're not here. So you go, golly, how do you connect with these people to give them the culture feel that they don't want to leave? Because then I don't want them to feel like a commodity where somebody pays them a little bit more and then they're gone. Okay, and that's exactly what happens. So we found that, and we're really good on retaining people. I mean, we rarely lose people. When we do, it's usually because of a couple of things. Number one, neglect. We just, either me, we're built into teams. There's producer teams. It's important for me to explain this to you so you can understand how it works. So you'll have a producer and then a handful of people that work on that producer's team selling insurance.
Sure.
Could be 5 to 10 people. Then you'll have another one in pods of teams like this. Then they'll have departments that those people go to. So all the commercial lines people, the employee benefits, the personal lines. Then there's the overarching COO, CFO, CEO level of people that are up here. So we're kind of layered. So we made the decision recently, in fact, and probably just a few months ago, that if we don't get personal connection with everyone in the office, then we're going to risk losing them because they're going to feel like they're not connected to this big company. So Johnny Pence can't call, I can't take them to lunch, I can't do all that stuff. It's hard. So we've done several things, very specific. Number one, we've asked all of our production teams, the producer, the lead person on that team, to have a weekly meeting. A lot of it's Zoom, some of it's in person with the team. In the first 10 minutes, how you doing? What'd you do this weekend? Vacation? How's your dog? Personal conversation. Just chat around so you can have connectivity from a non-business standpoint. And this lasts the whole meeting's about an hour. So they go through that and then they talk about business. What's everybody doing? What are your challenges? Oh my gosh, I'm up to my eyeballs. I need help. Okay, Beth, can you help? Sally over here. And they work together. So they get like that. So they feel like they're connected within a team. And then what we do, then I'll periodically call. I used to do when we were in person. I took 3 people a week, 3 employees to Outback. I went to Outback, same table, same thing every time. So nobody would say, where do you take you? It's always the same thing. So I make it a point to, and I don't do it, and you can't go to lunch anymore, but Matt Lipscomb and I have a monthly Zoom meeting with the employees, everybody. We had 99 on the call out of 150 on the call. I think it's 99. And then I think it was 99 on it the other day. Anyways, good number of people. And we talk about, anniversaries, birthdays, where you go vacation. I announce it. And we show pictures of them, show their dog and all that kind of stuff like that. And then we give kudos out. Allison did a great job with this account and this and so forth, and publicly let them know that. Go through, there's a lot of them we read through. There's probably 8 to 10 kudos. I kind of make sure that we're not talking about one person all the time. And then we go in and talk about the company as a whole, the financials and all those kind of things. And then I'll periodically, new hires, I'll call them. Hey, Morgan, she lives in Louisiana. She just got hired. Johnny Pitts. I just want to introduce myself. Congratulations, or thank you really for coming on board. I feel like we've got a good person with you, so they feel connected. And ongoing like that. We also do, we pay for, at least this year we did, Christmas parties. So we fly in, like we're bringing the whole, we have a transportation division with, 30 people. We're flying them all into Memphis. I'm having event at my house, it's a party, Sunday night, to have them, my home. They get to meet everybody individually. We pay for all that stuff. They feel connected. So it's all about building, to me. If it's all transaction, you're going to lose them to the highest bidder. If it's more in the relationship and it's hard to do, you got to really work at it when you're remote. I think that's the way you can improve the retention. And we do get calls. They'll say, "Man, John, I got an offer for so and so," and I always say, "All right, tell me about it." And then they say, "I want to leave." And anyway, we usually keep those people.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Sure. You have a newsletter that goes out?
So sorry.
Newsletter that internally.
Yeah. Allison, do we do a newsletter?
We do new employee announcements, not like it's just a standard newsletter, but anytime there's something going on with the company, it's a company-wide email, just sort of announcements.
Yeah, not a formal newsletter, but we frequent communication. Like yesterday, we just went out to talking about promoting Sarah to the trucking department. We hired 2 new people in the marketing department. Here's I don't want to belabor this, but if you're owning a company, you know that everyone seems like that's on a support role feels overworked. There's too much work going on. You haven't added enough people. I'm stressed out. IT sucks. All this stuff. And so I said yesterday after I got our final budget, so we're going to overhire. I want to overhire. I want to get more people than we actually need. We'll grow into it because I'm really concerned about the staff. I don't want people. I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to be working hard either. To a stress level, and they shouldn't be. A lot of these are single moms. I don't think it's fair. I don't like it when they're stressed out like that. So we try to do it where we're limiting them. And then we've asked, you wouldn't believe the emails we got on this response yesterday. So we're overhiring by 2 people in marketing, which is where they all need it. That's what they were complaining about. And it's like, oh, thank goodness. God, this is great news. Morale just went through the roof, it seemed like, via email, even though you couldn't talk to them. So anyway, I think it's understanding things, listen to your people, and there's not a lot of magic to it, but I think you have to apply things very specifically to try to get the culture back. Thanks. You're welcome.
I have another question, or really something that I think about all the time after our meeting with you and Matt when you were inducted into the society, is that a partnership is an interesting beast, especially amongst an entrepreneur that's kind of that driver, hardcore person. But you and Matt told me something that I've never forgotten, is that you've never had an argument as a partner. How do you do that?
That's what Matt said.
So Matt's never been mad at you,
no. Well, we don't let it get to that argument stage. If you're upset, we go in there, close the door and say, look, what the heck's going on here? Why did this happen? What that happened? We're both smart guys. We both trust each other. We view our partnership, and we call it a partnership. For years, it was a partnership. It wasn't, we were individually on the line until LLCs came around. We were individually on the line for the financial mistakes that we made. Unlimited. You better have a good partner. That really taught us, it's like a marriage. It's you got 2 votes. If you don't agree, you got to work it out. That's the way it comes out with us. So what we always do is we have a it's kind of corny. We got a simple rule. If one guy feels that strongly about it, the other guy goes with it. And so we meet so frequently and talk about the little things and get those resolved before it becomes a big thing.
It's very good advice. Does anybody have any? Okay, sweetheart.
I know, like, you thought there were a lot of success and everything, but they come with some failures too, right? So how do you manage failures and success, especially being an entrepreneur? They might happen simultaneously. How do you make sure the failure is going down if you're focusing on the success?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways to measure failures. I look at it as, in fact, if we have to, we don't really terminate people very often. But rarely when we do, or if someone leaves us, I look at that as I screwed up. I was a failure on my part. I didn't do something. I hired the wrong person. I didn't treat them right. I didn't handle it properly. But I think the first thing you have to do on a failure or a misstep or whatever it is, Sridhar, is you have to look at it and say, is it me? What I do? Did I do something wrong? So it's always good to have people within your friendship or your business community. I always say you need someone that says the emperor has no clothes. You have to have someone in your circle that can tell you, get off your high horse. You're really about to, you're not as big and bad as you think you are first. But I think failures, what we do is we go in and we dissect them. I mean, like, what happened? We lost this account. We lost a giant account. Get this, about January 1. There's a big account. And the guy's an Israeli private equity firm, and his name is Ohad. And so I texted him and I said, "Can we talk?" He said, "Sure." So I said, "Oh, I want to know what happened. You know what?" I said, "You've already moved your business, but I want to know where did we go wrong?" And he goes, he named 3 things, and 2 of the 3 were not preventable. We couldn't have fixed anything. They're more of a global company now. He thought we were this big, and he just kind of had his mind made up in that. But it made me feel a lot better to know that our team did not drop the ball. He even said, he goes, "Johnny didn't serve us. Y'all did a great job." So I think it's being forthright with your failures, your losses, all those things that you need to dissect them and find out what's going on. I mean, our producers, I tell them, they tell me all the time, and I tell them, if you've got 10 accounts that you're working on and you win 9, you are so ticked off about the one you didn't get, right? I mean, you're going, "What happened? I can't believe that." And you go, "Man, you're not, if I was in baseball, you'd be in the Hall of Fame." So I think it's a lot of your perspective of the way you look at it, and that makes sense.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate this, Johnny. This is very, very good.
Thank you.
And now that y'all all, we were talking about the questions yesterday, and I spent last night staying up way too late pondering who would I go to first in a crowded room of everybody that I've ever met. So welcome to my life as you all go to bed tonight. So Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thanks,
we really
Pearson.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody. Appreciate it.